Hey friends, it's Ryan with Arrows of Love. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Mercury retrograde, which is starting on January 14th, which is tomorrow. I'm doing this video on January 13th. So Mercury retrograde, what is it astronomically? What is its significance astrologically? And then I'm going to go through the houses and describe what you might expect with a Mercury retrograde from your ascendant or your sun, and I'm going to pull a card for each sign. So that's what I'm going to do today. Mercury retrograde, what is it astronomically? So Mercury is the closest planet to the sun, and it is constantly doing a dance with the sun throughout the year. And Mercury retrogrades happen 3 or 4 times a year from our perspective here on Earth. So they're fairly common compared to, let's say, a Venus retrograde, which happens only every 18 months, or a Mars retrograde, which might happen every 2 years. Those tend to be a little bit more significant. People tend to feel that a little bit more because they don't happen quite as often. Mercury retrograde, however, happens fairly often. And it's quite literally just Mercury passing through the sun on either side of us, depending on where Earth is around on its orbit. So Mercury disappears consistently throughout the year because it's so close to the sun and the sun is so bright that it blocks Mercury. You can't see it in the sky, so it disappears quite often. And astrologically, it's basically Mercury dipping into the underworld. So if you look at the glyph of Mercury, it has little horns on it, and that's symbolic of Mercury being a neutral planet. It's not necessarily benefic like Venus or Jupiter, and it's not necessarily malefic like Mars and Saturn. It's somewhere in between. It's the messenger planet. It's the trickster god. It's the god of chaos. He's constantly going back and forth from the underworld. And you think about how communication works generally, right, in our daily lives. Sometimes it's friendly, sometimes it's not. We deal with this every single day. So if we want to think about it in that term, Mercury's constantly dredging up things from the underworld. So it has an interesting relationship with Pluto and the sun and how they interact with each other. So Mercury disappears, can't see it. Communication gets a little bit weird during Mercury retrograde. These are irritations of life. Mercury rules the signs of Gemini and Virgo, so it has an air quality to it and also an earth quality to it. So Mercury rules the mind. It's learning. That's Gemini, right? It has a little bit of duplicity to it, right? That's Gemini, the twin. So that's this going back and forth from the underworld, neutral planet. Sometimes we say Gemini is this fickle, double personality, and maybe that's true to a certain extent. I also think it has more to do with just stereotypes that have been generated through the course of modern astrology, and there's some truth to that maybe, but really it has to do with the symbolic nature of Mercury going back and forth from the underworld. There's this duplicity to it where it's dredging up things, this neutral type planet where communication, thinking, merchants, travel is going smooth, or sometimes it doesn't. So that's how we see it play out in our daily lives, where you hear astrologers say, expect travel delays with Mercury retrograde, things not going right with technology, communication is off. Generally speaking, maybe you're a little bit more anxious during this time because Mercury rules the mind. Maybe you're just racing through thoughts and you're having difficult sleeping, things like that, obsession, things of that nature come up when Mercury goes retrograde. So Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde tomorrow on January 14th in the sign of Aquarius. And Aquarius rules the collective, society, the future, our visions, our hopes, wishes, and dreams. It's the 11th house on the zodiacal wheel. And I'll go through each house, each sign, where it lands for you based on your ascendant or your sun. But generally speaking, Aquarius is a detached sign. They tend to be a little bit more individualistic, but also concerned about humanity and society. So it has this water bear feel, right? It has to do with Ganymede, the story of Ganymede through mythology. So Zeus sweeps in, covets Ganymede, takes him to Mount Olympus, where he becomes the cupbearer for the gods. So there's this demigod quality to Aquarius, where it signals from the ethereal coming down through human contact. That is the story of Aquarius. but it's a little bit detached. It's a little bit ethereal. It's very inventive. Modern astrologers say that Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. Ancient astrologers say that Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is currently in Aquarius. So from a Hellenistic point of view, Aquarius is very strong right now because its home sign, its home planet, temple of Saturn is Capricorn and Aquarius. It's a masculine sign, it's an air sign, has a lot to do with our thoughts. What are we thinking about? Where are we going in our future? So that is the general context of Mercury and Aquarius. So we'll be rethinking these things. We'll be reviewing where are we going in our future. And that's very broad, but it is also collectively, where are we going? And we can see this happening in the news right now in the United States. The coronavirus is surging again. Mercury is retrograding through the exact degrees that Saturn was at when it first entered Aquarius back in March of 2020. That was the time of lockdown, the first lockdowns. So restricted collective society. That is really what this comes down to. That's what Saturn did back in March of 2020. Mercury is now retrograding in the same area. We're seeing these similar themes come up again. What's going on with society? Restriction and delay again. Things coming up from the underworld. That could be the coronavirus surging through the world again, and we're seeing that, right? So that's what's happening on more of a global level. Now, personally, we'll go through the houses and we'll talk about what this could mean for you. But I wanted to provide that context. That is what Mercury retrograde is. It is little irritations. You can expect travel delays, irritations in work. The interesting thing about this particular Mercury retrograde is that when Mercury entered shadow, this is a shadow period where it's retrograding, it was Capricorn at 24 degrees. Venus retrograde happened to be at 24 degrees at that same exact time. So this Mercury retrograde has a lot to do with the Venus retrograde that's been happening pretty much through all of January and then most of December. It really started back in mid-November is when Venus retrograde really started. That's a 6-week process. Now Mercury's in the mix too, and it's hitting some of these same degrees that Venus retrograde is also at. So 24 degrees of Capricorn is where Mercury entered shadow. Okay, this is the point where it's going to retrograde back and station direct. So Mercury was moving along, gets all the way up to Aquarius, 10 degrees, stations retrograde, stops in the sky. That's where it's closest to Earth. It has the biggest power, has the most impact on us. It's happening right now. The energy is building. It's going to station, meaning it's not moving in the sky, and it's an illusion where it's moving backwards in the sky. It's not actually moving backwards, just based on Earth's rotation around the sun and Mercury's rotation of the sun. So it appears to be moving backwards in the sky all the way up until February 4th, where it moves back to 24 degrees of Capricorn. And it's going to sit there for another week, not maybe a week, maybe a few days, because Mercury is a faster moving planet. And then it's going to move forward again all the way through the post-shadow period, which is February 25th. So this is a process. This takes a while. It's a good 6-week process that we go through with Mercury retrograde, and it's hitting a lot of these things with Venus retrograde. So it has a lot to do with communication. How are you communicating with your partner? Dredging things up from the underworld, talking about obsession, possessiveness, because Pluto's in the mix too. Pluto's sitting at 26 degrees of Capricorn. So these planets, these personal planets, have been moving across this transformative alchemical planet of Pluto. So it dredges things up from the underworld, secrets, truths coming out. This is a harder one, I think, for all of us. And I think we're going to go through a lot of COVID things too. It's coming back up for all of us. And we're just going to have to work through it. And Venus retrograde is still happening as well. We're not going to get through that. Venus won't move through post-shadow until early March, when it meets up with Mars and Pluto at the 28th degree of Capricorn. They kind of travel together actually for a while, but they're going to meet up with Pluto at about 28, and that's the exalted degree of Mars. So there's going to be a lot of official action happening. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some military action too. Generally speaking, when there's been military action during a retrograde phase, the aggressor doesn't do so well. Keep that in mind also with your personal contacts. The aggressor doesn't do so well. So I'm also going to share a personal story so you guys can see how this plays out. I think this is how people learn astrology, and then I'm going to get into the signs and pull the cards. So personal story with me. I'm a Cancer rising, so you can have context of where this is sitting in my chart. So we start at Cancer, all right, with the houses. You can start with the sun if you don't know your birth time, but if you want to know exactly how these planets and these transits would affect you, you really need to know your birth time, and you need to know where your ascendant falls. So for me, I'm a Capricorn sun, but I'm also a Cancer rising. So I start at Cancer, that's my first house. Now, for me, Mercury retrograde is happening in my 8th house. So Aquarius is 8 signs past Cancer. The 8th house is a house of death, transformation, rebirth, upheaval, taxes, insurance, intimacy sometimes comes up here too. But it has a lot to do with debts and other people's money, financial institutions, loans, karmic debts, anything that you might owe to someone else or that someone else might owe to you. The 8th house is sometimes very difficult, and Saturn's sitting there. It is, and it's in its home sign. So I've dealt with death in my life, not necessarily personally, but in other ways. It's been affecting my friends. It's been affecting other people around me, and I won't go into that. But Saturn is known as old age, death, and decay in the house of death. I've been telling Cancer risings and Cancer suns, you got to figure out how to figure out where death lies in your life and figure out how it fits into your life right now, because this is a 3-year transit. Saturn's going to be in Aquarius for till March of 2023, and I think that's when the pandemic will end, because that Saturn had a lot to do with the pandemic. So that's for anybody watching. But for me, Saturn's sitting in my 8th house, and my 8th house is being activated, and that's where Mercury is going to retrograde, and it's going to retrograde back into my 7th of Capricorn. So I work in a financial institution. That's why I'm talking about the 8th house. That's my regular daytime job. I'm a lawyer during the day. I happen to work at a financial institution. So a lot of the 8th house has to deal with work for me. It has other connotations, but for me in my personal chart, I've noticed the 8th house has a lot to do with work because I work at a financial institution. My 7th house is being activated by Venus retrograde because it's in Capricorn. My Cancer rising, it's the exact opposite signs. My 7th house of one-on-one relationships, business relationships, romantic relationships, partnerships, legal contracts. And Venus retrograde oftentimes represents women. So at work, yesterday we're having a Zoom call, and there was some testy words being said by a female colleague, and it didn't really end so well, and she just kind of got fired up. And that is very indicative of that kind of this Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, and how they interact together. So that's just one example of these retrogrades kind of flaring up in a very dramatic way. And really the lesson is, remember, it's small irritations. Venus has a lot to do with relationships and how you manage relationships, but Mercury is just testing how do you react to this stuff, right? So the key with Mercury retrograde is take a deep breath. It's passing energy. Mercury is a faster moving planet. It's passing energy. It's small irritations. It's a little bit of chaos. You're going to get through it, right? So don't take it personal. They're going to try and get under your skin. Communication is going to be off on this one. COVID things are going to come up. So keep communication open overall, but you can see how this particularly impacted me. I want to provide that story because I think this is always important for you to understand how it might affect you in your chart when you're looking at it. So let's talk about each sign, how it might affect you. We're going to start with Aries. Aries is the first house on the zodiacal wheel. I'll make my way through. I will have timestamps for everyone if you want to take a look at it for your ascendant or your sun. So Aries, Mercury retrograde is in Aquarius. Aquarius is the 11th house for you. It's 11 signs past Aries. The 11th house has to do with your hopes, wishes, and dreams. It has to deal with the collective, groups, allies. Where do you want to go? And Mercury rules your 3rd house of communication and your 6th house of health, work, and routine. So you might be reviewing where you want to work right now overall, and you might be thinking what's your dream job? What do you really want in 2022? So you might be rethinking some of that because Mercury rules your 3rd and your 6th, and it happens to be in the 11th, and it's moving back into the 10th. In Capricorn. So like I mentioned, it starts in Aquarius and then moves back to Capricorn. Capricorn's your 10th house of career. So I'm thinking there's some things coming up with career for you overall, not necessarily love. But there could be some things because Venus also rules money. I'm thinking this has to do with work, and you're thinking, where do you really want to work in 2022? And you've noticed in the United States, there's been this great, what are they calling it? The Great Resignation. Millions of people are resigning from their jobs right now, but I think a lot of people are rethinking, what do you want? Work right now is a huge focus for a lot of people. Because a lot of us are still stuck at home, it's still a focus of our lives. So I think that's what's happening for you overall. So Aries, let's pull a card. This is the advice for you with Mercury retrograde. Let's see what the tarot has to say. You got your own card. You're in your power. The Emperor. Stand in your power. Make sure you're communicating clearly. What do you want? This is the spark. This is you going for what it is you want. So I think you're in a position of power here. I really like this for you overall. I think you need to communicate clearly, okay? And go for it. You have everything that you need already. So I really like this card for you. I think this is definitely a good sign for you, but take it slow, because I think Mercury retrograde can really bring up some things with money overall, because it's hitting Venus and it's also hitting Pluto. So there has something to do with work. Maybe even looking at your health routines here as well. So maybe you're just taking charge of your health. So that's what you can expect, Aries. All right, let's keep moving. Taurus. For you, this is your 10th house. 10th house is career. So you might be, there might be a little irritations in career. There could be problems with technology. There could be miscommunication happening right now. Mercury is going to retrograde from Aquarius into Capricorn. So it's going from career to the 9th. The 9th has to do with your beliefs, your hopes, your wishes, your beliefs, your morality, your faith. It has a lot to do with philosophy, order, the law. Venus is sitting over there too. Some of you might be dealing with a court case in the workplace. That could go either way. So just because Pluto is in there, Venus is your ruling planet right now. So this could go either way. Venus is going to station direct on January 26th. So if you are dealing with a court case for any reason, I would say try to resolve it after the 26th. If you can push it out, do it. That's just for some of you. So let's take a look. This has to do with career. And then 9th has to do with long distance travel, distant people, distant lands. Could also deal with the higher mind, higher education. If you're rethinking going back to school, getting a certificate, brushing up on job skills, that might be what's on your mind right now. So let's pull a card, Taurus, for you. Let's see what's going on for Taurus. 10 of Wands. So it's you releasing burdens. This is the end of a cycle for you. Venus retrograde is your ruling, or Venus is your ruling planet. It rules Taurus and Libra. So for you, you're coming to an end of a cycle. So a lot of what happens with Taurus rising and Taurus sun, you watch what happens with Venus. So I would say if things have been a little bit difficult, if you've been dealing with a lot of burdens, even at work, in your personal relationships right now, just know that it's coming to an end. You kind of just need to ride this out. I think you're going to see some healing aspects, or even some new romantic flames come in for you, probably after the 26th. Now, I would say this isn't going to be your forever partner if you happen to meet someone, because Venus is still in retrograde, Venus is still going through shadow until March. So someone comes in here unexpectedly, maybe it's helping you move on from some difficult stuff. So I'm going to put that out there. So that's what you can expect, Taurus. All right, Gemini. Gemini. This was an interesting one for you because Mercury is your ruling planet. It rules Gemini and it also rules Virgo. And for you, this is in your 9th house. So Aquarius is 9 signs past Gemini. The 9th house has to deal with your higher beliefs, morality, your faith, your beliefs, philosophy. It also has to do with higher education, people politica, foreign people, foreign lands. So it has to do with expanding the mind. Think about expansion, good luck, opportunities. And then Mercury is going to retrograde into Capricorn, which is your 8th house. And the 8th house is a house of upheaval. It's a house of debts, other people's money, inheritances. It's the death and rebirth process. It's transformation. So this is where Venus is at too. Venus is the ruler of your 12th house, which is self-sabotage. The 12th house is difficult. This is your blind spot. So you really need to pay attention here. If something is calling you to end it or release it, you're going to know, probably by February. So this one could be difficult. I think you're just reassessing your beliefs, and maybe a part of your belief system has to come to an end. I think that's what it is. And Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde will probably show you your blind spot here, Gemini. So let's pull a card for you, Gemini, see what universe has in store. Five of Cups. Yeah, so this kind of goes with that 8th house theme. 5 of Cups is the man walking away from a situation. 3 cups are spilled. 2 cups are still on the ground, which means there's still some emotional attachment to the situation. There could be a little bit of disappointment here as well. It's the man walking away from a situation that just didn't work out. And here I'm going to say, if you need to talk to someone, go talk to a therapist. Or if you need to also get an astrology reading, because the 8th house, which is Capricorn for you, rules the occult, send me a message. I'm happy to look at your chart. We can do a tarot card reading for you, figure out what's happening. This is a good time to get an astrology or tarot card reading for you. So I'm going to put that out there for you, Gemini, overall. But keep your head up. This is passing energy, like I said, and something just needs to be released here. But it could be a little bit of a difficult one. Emails in the description box below, Gemini. That's for everyone, by the way. All right, Cancer. I talked a little bit about Cancer. I'm a Cancer rising. So for you, Cancer, Mercury retrograde is going to happen in your 8th and your 7th. So it starts out in Aquarius, which is your 8th house. It's 8 signs past Cancer. And then Mercury is going to retrograde back into your 7th house of Capricorn. So 8th house has to do with death, rebirth, transformation, other people's money, inheritances, sometimes intimacy, taxes, insurance. And then it also is going to retrograde into your 7th house of one-on-one relationships, partnerships, sexuality. What I say here is there could be endings with partnerships. It might not be your partnership, though. It could be siblings, business partnerships, people around you. There might be some upheaval with some people around you. If you have personal planets there, though, could affect you. So I'll keep that in mind. So relationships are very much highlighted here. And something just is going to be reborn. There's some healing, there's some releasing that needs to be done here. So let's see what's going on for you, Cancer. And then Venus retrograde is happening in your 7th house. Could be a little bit of a... This could be a hard one. Okay, so just see what the tarot has to say. This is for Cancer. Cancer Sun, Cancer Rising. Knight of Cups. So like I said, this could go either way. Sometimes this is healing and releasing. Other times this is someone coming in. So Knight of Cups, this is the Knight in Shining Armor. It's the wings of Mercury here too. So I want to point that out right here. So Mercury starts in the 8th, goes back into the 7th. So you could hear someone from your past, Cancer. And there might be some karmic ties that just need to be finished up. So I'm going to put that out there. That's for some of you. Others of you, you might meet someone during this time. I say take it slow. There could be things, because we're still finishing up Venus retrograde in the 7th, and now we're going through Mercury. Like, just take things slow. You might not see everything. This might also deal with someone else overall in your life. So they could just be embodying this Knight of Cups, or it could be you too. Like you have... Your cup is filled for someone. So overall, I'd say take things slow. Someone might be coming back. Just you got to finish up some karmic ties here, Cancer. All right. Who do we have next? Leo. All right, Leo. This one could affect you a little bit more than others. Leo, Mercury retrograde is going to happen in your 7th. It starts in your 7th. That's Aquarius. The 7th is your one-on-one relationships, your partnerships, legal contracts, sexuality, friends. It's your close relationships, okay? And then Mercury is going to retrograde back into Capricorn, which is 6th house of work. So work relationships are in review here. Something's changing. Could be a female work colleague having some issues overall. Take things slow. Be patient. I'm also a progressed Leo ascendant, and this is exactly why I told that story about having some issues with a work colleague. So for you, it could be something similar. So just be patient. Overall, I think a work colleague is maybe having some issues here. Watch your health as well, because that 6th house also deals with health, weighty matters. So wear a mask. I know a lot of you are not going to want to hear that, but Leo, I think you need to. So, okay. Keep yourself safe. Let me just put it that way. Take your own steps. Keep yourself safe. Okay. Let's see what I have for Leos. 10 of Pentacles. Wow. So you're completing a cycle too. Saturn is still in your 7th house. Saturn rules your 7th house of Aquarius. Let's see what else is happening for you. Leo. 8th. Where could this come from? Jupiter just went into Pisces, and Pisces for you is your 8th house. 8th house has to do with lump sums. Sometimes there can be unexpected lump sums. Jupiter is the greater benefic planet, expands whatever it's near. So sometimes there can be unexpected windfalls. So this could come from a family member. This could come from taxes, inheritances, other people. Okay, so I think this is where this could potentially come from for you, just because that 8th, it's the 8th house is being activated by Jupiter, but you have a lot of happening in the 7th too. So there's something happening here. Some of you are going to have an unexpected windfall. Others of you are just you're very content. So maybe it's just not a lot's happening necessarily, but a lot could be happening on that work front. Maybe there's a bonus coming in for you, big bonus. That's for some of you. So I love this card overall. I think this is one of the best cards in the deck. So just be patient, Leo. If you've been playing your cards right, this is a big one. But like I said, that 8th house is being activated by Jupiter. Sometimes that's inheritances. Okay, so putting that out there. That's for Leo. Let's keep moving. We're at Virgo. Virgo, for you, this is also your ruling planet, Mercury. You're ruled by Mercury, so this one could affect you a little bit more. And this will happen in your 6th house of work. And Mercury will start in the 6th house in Aquarius and then retrograde back into the 5th house of romance. That's Capricorn. Children, fun and games, entertainment. The 5th house is the house of joy. Venus is retrograding in that 5th house. It said that the 5th house is the joy of Venus. So for you, there could be a return of a past partnership. You could be reviewing passion in your life, what fires you up. Things could be a little bit damp on that end actually too right now. You can just feeling like the joy has been literally sucked from you overall. If you're Virgo, rising or sun. So these are things that you might want to, this could be a difficult one for you overall, I think, Virgo. Because you're definitely dealing with something that deals with happiness, something that brings you joy, and then it's the 6th house, and 6th house is weighty matters. It can feel like you're chained or bound to something. It was traditionally known as a house of disease, servitude, slavery, bondage. So the 6th house is a house of conflict too. Conflict with passion, conflict with what makes you happy. So what I'm going to say to you is, again, you just kind of got to ride this one out, because this is your ascendant ruler. Mercury's in the mix here. So just hold tight, Virgo. I think this one could affect you a little bit more as well, more so than others. So let's take a look at the tarot and see what advice it has for you. This is for Virgo. Yeah, 2 of Pentacles, so juggling, and this kind of makes sense, right? Because what gives you joy and what needs to be released. So it's kind of this push and pull from the two, because that 6th house is always like you're bound to something. You have to do something that you don't necessarily want to do, and the 5th house is like, I want to be free and I want to have fun. So it's struggling between the two, trying to find that balance between the two. So there are some karmic ties here with the infinity symbol. So just, take it slow. Something needs to be released. Something needs to be reassessed in your daily life, because that 6th house also has to deal with routine too. Take a look at that. Something might have to be reassessed in your routine. So that's the messages that I have for our Virgos. Libra. So Libra, Mercury retrograde is going to start in your 5th house of Aquarius. Aquarius is 5 signs past Libra, and then it's going to move into your 4th. So, and that's Capricorn. So this has to do with like home and family, roots and foundation, possibly motherhood as well, or the mother. That 5th house has to do with children, joy, entertainment, fun, games, passion, romance. So there could be something, the combination of the two coming up for you overall. And Venus is your ascendant ruler. It's in that 4th house of Capricorn right now. So you could be reviewing, you know, Venus has to do with women. So if mom or sister or a female in the family right now is going through a difficult time, that might be an indication of such. Or if you're trying to do any type of aesthetics in the home, or perhaps you have to put some money into the house because you have an unexpected expense. It's things like that because Venus also rules money. So just keep that in mind. And the 5th house is your house of joy and passion and fun and romance. So you could hear from someone from the past, perhaps, with Mercury retrograde. Maybe you're just reviewing, you know, trying to spice things up again in the bedroom. I mean, that's also a potential possibility with this particular transit. So this is for Libra. Let's see what's going on. Death. Yeah, so something needs to change here. Something needs to be released. Something needs to be let go. Pluto is in the mix too, over in that 4th house. So if Libra, this is just for some of you, I feel like maybe a family member might pass. And my heart goes out to you guys, or maybe it's already happened. So that's for some of you, not for all of you. But there's also just, generally speaking, death also has to just deal with endings. So something's got to come to an end. Karmic loops have to come to an end here too as well. That's just for some of you, but I feel like this actually, for some of you, you might be dealing with a physical death in the family. So again, my condolences of that. But all of you, just think about, universe is pointing you to something that probably needs to come to an end. That's what death is here. All right, next up, Scorpio. Let's see here, Scorpio. Mercury retrograde is going to start in Aquarius in your 4th house of home, family, roots, foundation, ancestry. And it's going to move into your 3rd house of Capricorn, which is communication, your local communities, siblings. It's also travel, short distance travel, technology. So this one for you, there could be some tension in the family. Or in your immediate environment right now. Overall, Mars, your ruling planet, is in your 2nd house of Sagittarius right now. That has a lot to do with money, self-worth, your income, and it's going to move into that 3rd house of communication very quickly here. So it has a lot to do with you, communication, could be dealing with some family stuff too. You might be looking at family history and health, perhaps. That's for some of you. You're reviewing family history and health. Remember, it has to do with ancestry, that 4th house. So it also has to do with foundations, so unexpected expenses at the home, irritations at the home, technology problems at the house. Would not be at one bit surprising for our Scorpio and Scorpio rising. So let's see what the Tarot has to say for our Scorpios. Ace of Swords. So it is a new start. It's the truth. You're speaking your truth. I feel, and Pluto is involved in here. Both of your ruling planets are involved in this Venus retrograde phase in Capricorn and communication. So I feel like you're just speaking your truth. The truth is coming out. It is a victory too, and it's a new start. So I feel like you're just speaking your truth and you're getting something off your chest, and it's time. So Pluto digs up things from the underworld. Things just need to come out. Got to clear the air. So not a bad thing. Just don't be too prickly. You know how you can be, Scorpio, with your tail. So that's for Scorpio. All right, Sag is up next. Sag, Mercury retrograde is happening in your 3rd house of communication. Starting out in Aquarius, and then it's going to retrograde back into Capricorn, which is the 2nd house of income, the money you make from the business you own, the money you make from the company you work for, possessions, resources. So, 3rd and 2nd here I think like I see people having problems with appliances in the house, perhaps. Watch for car accidents here, so pay attention to where you're traveling, because third house is communication. All types of channels, movement, short distance travel. Second house is possessions. I think car here. So just be really careful when you're in the car. Look twice. Obey the traffic rules. People have been kind of crazy on the road too. So, but it could also be issues with technology, computers, phones, emails lost, miscommunication about money, or maybe you're trying to transfer money, and things get messed up. That's for some of you, not for all of you. So yeah, that's second is house, second is money, generally speaking, resources, possessions. Third is communication, travel, short distance travel. Third is also siblings, local communities, it's your immediate environment, channels of all types. So it's broad in that sense. Mercury rules the third too, so this could really affect you, like just real messed up communication overall. So let's see what's going on with you, Sag. This is from the Tarot. Two of Pentacles. So you're juggling back and forth. I think this kind of makes sense. And Pentacles are here. So again, this has to do with money. So maybe you're trying to move some money around. Maybe there's just been some unexpected expenses, or maybe there's been maybe the reserve has dried up for whatever reason, because Venus rules the second house, and it's in the second house right now, and it's retrograding. So, the wellspring could be drying up a little bit here, and you're just trying to move things around. So the lesson here is always make sure you have enough on reserve, okay? Just in case. All right, that's for Sag. Capricorn. Mercury retrograde is starting in your second house in Aquarius and moving back into your first house. Second house has to do with resources, possessions, money you make from the business you own, the money you make from the company you work for. And first house has to do with you, your body, your presentation, your identity, and your purpose. So here, I think you might be reviewing, where you spend your money on yourself. You might be looking at where you can cut some expenses. So, or you might be considering investing, doing a makeover. Maybe it's your closet. Maybe you want to get some plastic surgery. Anything with the body here would be warranted, perhaps. Your self-presentation, oftentimes that involves, your wardrobe. Maybe you're thinking about changing your hair, I grow out my beard, things like that. So I'm a Capricorn sun, so that wouldn't necessarily be surprising. Mercury for you rules Gemini and also Virgo. So for you, that's your sixth house and also your ninth. So 6 and 9, your beliefs about health, your beliefs about routine, morality. Yeah, I think you're thinking about you. What do you want to look like, Capricorn? And if you have to spend a little money to upgrade your appearance, start thinking about that now. I think a lot of you might be considering that. So not a bad thing. Take it slow though. I wouldn't be rushing off to go get any tattoos or plastic surgery just quite yet, because Venus is still retrograde, and Venus is the planet of aesthetics, and it's in your first house. So wait until after March. Like if you want to do some research, think about what it is you want. That's fine until March. Don't be actually doing any procedures until after March 2nd. So that's just my general advice for our Capricorns. You guys pulled the moon. So this is kind of interesting too, because we have Venus retrograde happening in your first house. And whenever you have your first house activation, always also activates your seventh, which for you is Cancer. And the moon is Cancer. It rules Cancer. It also represents Pisces sometimes too. So you might be dealing with a Pisces, which is third house of communication, or seventh house of one-on-one relationships. So you might be a lot happening with communication and partnerships right now overall. But the moon also represents the subconscious, what's happening underneath the surface. So maybe you just feel like there's something waiting to happen. Maybe there's secrets coming out. Maybe you just feel like you don't have all the information yet. And that's fine, Capricorn. Truth is always revealed, but right now maybe you just don't have all of it, or maybe there's some communication that doesn't make any sense. and your spidey senses are, tingling, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And I'd say you're probably right. Your intuition's probably right here, but wait for it to play out. This is the subconscious. These are things unseen. So, take it one step at a time. But overall, thinking about it in terms of third house, communication, travel, merchants, promoting yourself, and then seventh house, Cancer, which is also nurturing, emotion, comfort, but it has to do with partnerships and other people. So take it slow, okay? Capricorn. All right, we're getting close. We are in Aquarius. So Aquarius, this is Mercury retrograde is happening in your first house. That rules the body, your presentation, your purpose, and your identity. So you might be reviewing these themes right now. First of the year, we're still in January. Maybe some of you are thinking about diet, exercise, health routine, wardrobe, closet, just your general appearance. Maybe you want to change some things up here. But Mercury's going to dip back into your 12th too, and the 12th is kind of a difficult house at times. It has a lot to do with your blind spot. It's the house of the subconscious, introspection. So maybe right now you're just feeling like, I don't really want to talk to anybody. You're kind of closed off, doing a little bit of hibernation. We're in the middle of winter in the northern hemisphere, so maybe you're just kind of taking some time out for yourself and thinking about what your next steps are. But a lot of it has to do with you, your body, your presentation, your next steps. So those are all things that I would consider for the 12th house, but it's also your blind spot. So, watch out for self-sabotage. So if there's some unconscious behaviors that need to be explored here, Mercury's going to point them to you. Okay. And that's where Venus is at too in your 12th house. So unconscious patterns in love too. So this one could be a little bit trickier for you too, Aquarius, but let's see what's going on. This is from the Tarot, the Chariot. Oh, I like this. So the lesson is a new path. So you're considering the new path, and I think that has a lot to do with that 12th house activation, with introspection, being closed off. It has to do with confinement and isolation too. So maybe you're just feeling confined from a lover. Maybe a lover's away at a distant part. But this is the new path. So maybe you're just trying to figure out, how do you make it all work if this is a loved one. But if you're thinking about yourself and what's coming for you in 2022, you're getting inklings of what this new path is. And it's also victorious. So I would say take your time here with the retrograde seasons. You have until March. So you have a good month and a half to think about what your next steps are. So take your time, Aquarius. The new path will be shown to you. All right, last but not least, we have Pisces. And Pisces, Mercury retrograde is going to start at least in Aquarius, which is your 12th house. Aquarius is 12 signs past Pisces, and then it's going to move back into the 11th of Capricorn, which is your hopes, wishes, and dreams, allies. What I see here for you, Pisces, is I can see you, the 12th house is also a place of confinement, isolation, introspection, research. It's your blind spot. It has a lot to do with self-sabotage too, so drugs, sex, alcohol, for you, Pisces, that always rings true. So there could be something that triggers you here, where you're really thinking about your blind spot, and it has to do with your hopes, wishes, and dreams. So I'd say, really take this one steady, because I think this one could really kind of throw you for a loop, Pisces, because it always has to do with your blind spot, or maybe you're feeling really isolated and confined right now with where you're going with love, because Venus is retrograding that 11th house of the future and your allies. So what I like here is maybe there's an ally that shows up kind of out of nowhere for you to help you through some of this. So maybe it's a counselor, maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's a guru of some type that I kind of like for you overall. So I think there's someone here that can help you out if you're kind of going through a difficult time. But watch what Mercury's doing here is showing you your blind spot. What don't you see? Where are some unconscious patterns where you can change the future? That's really what this one is about for you, and Venus is involved, so it has something to do with love too. So Pisces, this is the card I pull for you, Four of Wands. So so I'm on my phone right now, and I just got a text message. I'm going to just pause. So sorry, Pisces, I'm going to get to this for a second, and because I know you want to know what this is. So Pisces, basically, okay, I'm going to hold off on what that was, and I'm going to tell you because I just talked about Taurus. So Four of Wands, this has a lot to do with your commitments. and where you're going, maybe in a partnership. And this is symbolic of a marriage card, but it's usually after marriage. So the marriage has already happened. So I think this is you figuring out where's your relationship going right now, if you're in one. And I think it's universe pointing you to your blind spot in your relationships and where are you self-sabotaging each other. So it is the 1111 card. There is some you have some divine help here. So trust spirit that you are being guided in the right direction. But overall, I think what it is you're just reviewing some of the blind spots in your commitment and what needs to be reassessed here so you guys can be successful in the future. So that's for Pisces. Okay, now this is what I love about astrology and the tarot. So I just talked about Taurus and what Mercury retrograde does in Taurus. And for Taurus, it's in the 10th house. It starts in Aquarius, and then it's going to move back into the 9th house of your higher beliefs, education. So I just had a friend text me, and I see some text messages come through because I'm on my phone. I'm going to get a computer because I want to show you charts and show you animations of this, and that's actually something I'm going to do in 2021. But right now I'm still doing this on my phone because I'm still working and doing other things. So sometimes I can't always take the time to do something really fancy with a computer. But my friend just texted me and he said he's 90% sure he's going to take a new job. I'm just going to read this real quick. In late February, I'll be downtown for lunches. So he's a Taurus sun. So this is Mercury retrograde. Now, what I'm going to tell him is that he said he's 90% sure. Well, what I'm going to say is it's a review of work, right? So something could potentially come up here, but he might not have all the facts yet because Mercury is going to hit Pluto. So things come up here that you didn't see. So I'm going to talk to him about it and say, hey, just like slow down because maybe there's things in here that you don't necessarily see yet, but you can see how these things come up, right? You don't necessarily want to be signing contract with Mercury retrograde. So I'm going to talk to my friend here, but I think I love it when this stuff happens so you guys can see in real time how it comes up overall. So I hope you enjoyed the reading. Always interested to hear how things are going for you. If you want a private reading, my email's in the description box below. Feel free to send me a message. We can set up a time. As always, if you like these readings and if you like these videos and would like to see more of them, please click the like button and subscribe. It helps the channel and it's very much appreciated from me. Until next time, take care. It's going to be a crazy couple of months just with these retrogrades. Go slow. Try to be patient. Don't get involved in any poking too because people are going to be on edge for the next couple of weeks. So, all right, talk to you later.